Hi everybody and welcome back to another YouTube video. Thanks very much for coming back as ever. This video is going to be a little bit different. This is on a topic that we get asked about quite a lot and it's ever increasing because people are looking to put more solar panels in more areas to generate more power to use in their homes, but also to export and get money back from the grid. And this video is all about wall-mounted solar panels like this one you can see behind me. So let's get into it. So you'll see this singular wall-mounted panel behind me, and I've removed some of the solar skirt off the bottom so that we can have a little look at how we've supported it. One thing to say is that at the point of installing this system, we could not find any purpose-built wall-mounted systems that would work for this property. So this has been a little bit of an experiment. And so if you were interested in wall-mounted solar panels and you wanted to do the same installation, it might look a little bit different next time. But that's what we all go on. We all go on this learning journey on how to deliver these projects for the lowest cost, for the best end outcome. And that's what we've done for this customer. This is an existing customer of ours who we did the original installation for 2 years ago. And yeah, he invited us back to do this wall-mounted panel because you can see it is directly in sunlight. It's currently 10:15 in the morning, and up until about 12:30 in the afternoon, this is in pretty much direct sunlight until the sun disappears. So we're going to get a little bit close to the panel. I'm going to show you how we fixed it and how this system's been performing. So let's have a look. Okay, so let's have a look at how we've actually installed this panel, and I'll talk you through a little bit about the challenges of doing a job like this, but also what we've installed, why we've installed it. So the first thing to say is, a bit like on the intro, this is a bit of an experiment. And when we've been looking at systems to deliver this project for the customer, it was very much right, what can we get out there that's a kit? And the answer was nothing. So that helped us in the decision to try and do something ourselves. So what we've done with this is, my main concern is obviously the security of the fixing to the wall. Now, the only way that I could really look at doing that is using standard solar PV fixings. So we've got our standard end clamps that are holding the panel back to the wall. But my concern was, well, what happens as over the years the system is wobbling a little bit and starts to slowly slip down, and as soon as it starts to come out, some of those clamps, we're in a bit of a dangerous situation. So I wanted to do something that held the bottom of this panel in place to stop that slippage, so that the clamps are just stopping the panel falling forward. They're not worried about necessarily stopping it falling down. So what we did was we fixed some Van der Valk standard rail through into the wall with some 120mm concrete fixings, and there's about 5 on each rail, so it's absolutely rock solid. And then we've used the standard solar PV end clamps to hold the panel back to that rail, and we've put that in 3 positions. Now, as I think I mentioned, we have put one in the middle, which is outside of the standard clamping zone, but it's not flat on a roof. This is a non-standard installation, and being honest, I was terrified of something happening to this panel because we haven't done it before. We haven't got a lot of experience on that to draw from. So I wanted to over-engineer this to make sure it's completely safe. So we've got effectively 2, 4, 6 fixing points. There's about 5 screws in 120mm screws on each piece of rail. So we've got 5, 10, 15 120mm concrete screws on this. We've then put, to stop that slippage of it falling back downwards, we then put these pretty heavy duty angle brackets on, which have some 120mm normal wood screws, but they are secured into the wall, and they are stopping this panel slipping down. Now, for the weight of the panel, for the amount of fixtures we've got on it, it's massively over-engineered. And we've learned a lot as to if and when we do it next time, a different way of potentially doing it. But this works really well for this scenario because we've got a fairly tight bit of space, so we didn't have a lot of flexibility to maybe put some in landscape and run some big long rails vertically. All these things we kind of discussed with the customer and considered, but this was the best way that we found to do this. Since installing this and going to shows like solar storage, I found some other alternatives as well. So this is okay for maybe a singular panel, but to do this over maybe 5 or 6 panels along a big bit of roof, it probably wouldn't be the best way to do it. But singularly, this is really good, and it has been generating unbelievably. We wanted to get up to this job fairly early so you could see this morning sun, and the customer's been sending me photographs of when the shading kicks in. And it kicks in at around this time of year. We're in April at the minute. This time of year kicks in around 12:30. So that means that this property gets pretty much half a day's worth of generation from this panel that's just on the wall. It's away from the road, so no one can see it. But this is a 510 watt panel. So they're getting over half a kilowatt of peak on this panel if the conditions are right, which is unbelievable, because the customer's only got one panel on the little section of roof here, which you'll be able to see from some drone shots. This panel now, and then I think it's 2 or 3 on this roof here, but that's all that he's got east facing. So this 510 watt panel is a real powerhouse on this early morning side, and that's why the customer wanted it, and therefore that's why we installed it. But there are some things to consider with adding panels like this to an existing system. For example, how the inverter will handle that, how you integrate that into the system, and ways that you can plan for future expansion that I think a lot of people maybe don't do. So let's get into that. Okay, so I mentioned about flexibility a minute ago, and I don't care what anyone says, the most flexible system on the market for adding solar PV, for replacing damaged modules, for upgrading the modules in the future has to be SolarEdge, because it's got the optimizers and it all feeds back to a central inverter. So for me, the only way that we could add one panel, which on its own is not enough to be on its own string, is going to have different voltage characteristics, different current characteristics than the existing panels. The only way to integrate that within an existing string is actually to have optimization, because that optimizer basically synchronizes that panel into the rest of the system. So the rest of the system just sees an increased power generation. And SolarEdge have got a really good design tool that allows us to run that design, obviously before we come sell the job, come to site and deliver it. So we know that the optimizer that we're going to fit for that high wattage panel, it's different to the rest of these on here. I think these are S440 optimizers, and we fitted an S500B on this. But because those optimizers are cross-compatible, it means that we can integrate that additional panel with the existing system, meaning that we haven't got to worry that there's going to be problems in the future, because that optimizer is working with all the other optimizers to synchronize that system together so that it just delivers more power to this SolarEdge inverter. So SolarEdge inverter that we've installed here, that we installed a couple of years ago, I think it's 2 years old, this system, is a 6 kilowatt wave inverter, and it's got a huge amount of panels on them. We'll go through those in a minute. But the thing to consider, if you are watching this video thinking, I'm thinking of getting a solar panel system, I don't know if I want wall panels yet, I'm going to see how I get on, spend a little bit more and get SolarEdge. Because without having SolarEdge, even if we'd have fitted a really high-end standard string inverter on this job in preparation for adding more panels, when you have a standard string inverter, you've got to hit the minimum string voltage. And usually that is around the 100 volts mark. And a singular panel is usually between 30 and 50 volts. So it means that even if you've only got room for one panel, you've only got the ability to add. You've only got the ability to reach 30 to 50 volts, and you're going to need at least 2 or 3 of those panels to hit the minimum startup voltage. If you don't hit that minimum startup voltage, basically that string will just constantly be turned off, and you'll be getting no benefit. With SolarEdge, because it integrates with the strings we've already installed, there's less wiring. So we're just literally tapping into the string that we have there already. We haven't got to get back to the inverter. We're not worried about starter voltage because we're tapping into the existing string, like I mentioned. We're not worried about panel mismatch because the optimizer is doing all the synchronization. So yes, SolarEdge costs more. There's more components, a premium brand, but it is one of the only ways to ensure you have cross-compatibility with a module going faulty and you're needing to replace it under warranty, but with a panel that potentially the supplier sends out because they haven't got any of the existing size that you've got on your roof at the minute. So having the SolarEdge side of things, I cannot stress this enough, how much that helps if you want to expand the system, change the system, or even repair the system in the future. So definitely something worth considering. And for that extra £1,000, whatever it costs, that secures the flexibility of that system going forward. So definitely one to consider. So I've just mentioned about flexibility, and I've gone on a little bit of a rant about flexibility. And I've never been on a project where this is more relevant to this place. We've obviously got the new panel that we fitted, so the ICO 510 watt, which is the one on the wall. We've then also added I think last year, we added a LG 375 watt panel on its own, on the little extension out the back, which again, you'll probably see on the drone footage. We then also added a Perlite 400 watt panel on the other side of the roof, on the opposite side of the LG. And then we also, on the main body of the installation, when we originally did it a couple of years ago, there were Q-Cell 385 watt panels. So we've got the Q-Cells, an LG, a Perlite, and an ICO panel. So we've got 4 different brands on this site, all working together, no risk of panel mismatch, all been able to be monitored individually because of the solar edge element. And like I say, we can add more. We can take up to 5 different brands if we wanted. If the customer wanted some more wall-mounted panels, or wanted to swap some of the panels out, flexibility over a system that is designed to be there for 25 years for me is so important. Now, one thing to consider when looking at optimizers or micro inverters, which there's 2 differences. Quickly, optimizers are DC to DC, so they don't convert the DC from the panels to AC, which our house uses. The optimizers basically optimize the DC. So you've got DC coming in from the panel and DC coming out to a central inverter like this one. Microinverters basically get rid of this inverter. Now, I'm not a massive fan of microinverters. I don't want absolutely everything that can go wrong up on the roof. They have got an extremely low failure rate, a bit like the optimizers. It's something like 0.1% or some crazy stat like that. So they are very reliable. But for me, my most common thing that I change on solar PV systems is the inverter. So I'm not massively up on the microinverter hype. I'm more on the optimizer hype. The reason that I also like the optimizers, is that we've got a lot more cross compatibility there, because we can mix and match the optimizers so that they all work together. Now, when you have the micro inverters, there's only so many we can actually fit. And because it's DC to AC, it means that quite quickly we can exceed the power on the cabling going round that roofing area. Whereas when it's DC to DC, we're still working within the parameters of a fairly small cross-sectional area of cable. So we're still working on a 4 or 6 mil cable. So for me, that really helps to keep adding panels on different strings. And for me, I don't understand the whole micro optimizer hype. Much more prefer DC coming to a central inverter that you can access in the future. Now, I understand that you can get rid of the inverter if you use the micro inverters, which saves space and the whole PAS thing. But for me, optimizers are the way to go. Slightly controversial, but I believe that's the right way to go. Okay, so what I'm keen to show you is how this panel is actually performing in kind of real time and over a period of time. So this panel's been installed about a month now. Obviously, we've just turned, as we film now, into April. So we can see how it's been doing in April. If I was on the dashboard, you'd be able to see this in a lot more detail. But we're going to show you what we can see on the app, and then you'll be able to gauge it yourself. So firstly, you'll see this app now. I'm on the daily tab. So this is just what it's done today. It's nearly 11 o'clock, so it's had nearly half a day in the sunlight. So this is our panel just here. So you can see we've got the ICO 510. So if we go to general, we can then see here power in watts. So this panel basically now in real time is generating 330 watts of energy. So there's 330 watts coming out of that panel. If we compare that to one of these ones here, which is a smaller panel, these are a 385. What have we got? We've got 288. So it's not too dissimilar as to what that panel on the roof is giving us. So we've basically extended that roof a little bit because it's the same position in terms of orientation, just the tilt angle is different. If we have a look at this one, this LG 375, that one is putting out about 276. They're all doing pretty much the same. We can see that today, that panel, probably because it's a bit of a bigger output, has done 904 watt hours of energy. So you can see that just on the panel there. This one over here has done 700 and, where has it gone? This one here has done 752, and the LG one over here has done 651. So our panel's performing really well. Like I mentioned, it is a higher wattage panel, so you would kind of assume that that would work in that way. But what I want to demonstrate there is that even though this panel is vertically mounted on the wall, it is still performing extremely well compared to panels that we're all used to seeing on roofs now. If we change that daily to monthly, we can then start to see how it's performing over. We're on the, what are we today? We're on like the 5th of the month, something like that. So we're very early days in the month. And if I was on the dashboard on the computer, we'd be able to look at what last month was doing. But unless I can do that on here. No, I can't. I thought it would be good. So if we just have a look at what it's been doing this month, we go onto this panel. So that's done 5.27 kilowatt hours this month. So in 5 days-ish, whatever the day is today, it's early days. This one over here has done 3.15. Our panel has done just under 5, so 4.95. So our wall panel and these three that are in a row here have done pretty similar amounts of energy generation, considering that that one is wall mounted at a lot steeper pitch, obviously vertically, and it's on the wall, so it's lower. There's more shading on it because next door neighbour's house shades that roof when after sort of 12:30. If we have a look at these panels on the front, which are pretty much south facing, we are getting 244 watts out of them at the minute, and they've done around 7.5 kilowatt hours, which is, again, you'd expect those to be generating the most. They're a lower wattage panel than our panel that we fitted, but they're generating about 7.51 kilowatt hours this month so far, and ours has done just under 5. So it is contributing a good chunk of energy to this house. And the key thing about this panel that we fitted, this wall-mounted one, is that it's in a position where the customer has got limited early morning generation. We've only got these three Q-Cell 385 watt panels. This one, that was the LG 375 watt, and this one here, the ICO 510. So we've only got those 5 panels that are facing in that east direction. So us being able to generate the 327 watts of energy early morning is the difference between potentially that customer having to draw on the battery or not. Certainly during the winter months, any generation that we can get in that early morning period is going to be really beneficial. And whilst it's not going to generate as much in the winter time and the darker, duller months, the rest of them won't either. So it's all going to be relative to the time of year. But the key thing with this is the positioning of the panel to allow the customers to generate that early morning sun, which they are limited on just because of how their roofs work out. But if you're looking at this thinking, I've got a really good side of my house that gets the early morning sun, my roof is old, I don't want the panels on the roof, the wall is maybe more hidden, all these sorts of considerations, suddenly a wall-mounted system might be really feasible. And now that we've done more research into this, we've found more systems, we can roll these sorts of systems out to a larger scale. Now there's considerations with that in terms of structural and whatever. We're not really too bothered about that on one panel, but if you're looking at fitting, say 10 panels on the side of your house, then we'd have to get some structural works probably assessed or some structural designs done. But all that is very, very achievable. And so identifying where your property has the potential to be able to generate power is going to help drive homes to be fully electric. And this property, for example, we're not going to go into absolutely everything that this property has because they've got loads of different things. They've got an EV charger, they've got obviously an EV, they've got an immersion heater that we use the power for, they've got smart plugs around the house. So this house uses a lot of electricity, but utilises it in an intelligent way to lower the electricity bills on the gas, but also on day-to-day appliances around the house, and helping to build some heat in the property through the smart plugs and plugged in electric heaters. But all that sort of good stuff can really help to make the home more comfortable whilst not buying in loads and loads of extra power to do that. But anyway, I'm not going to go through the full system here, but I just wanted to show you how this wall-mounted panel has been operating, and I think it's been doing really well. What do you think? So there we go, another YouTube video all wrapped up. Thanks very much for joining us. And I know this one will probably be a little bit controversial. Some people hate these, some people love them, and I want to hear what you think. The reality with this system is that it's added a hell of a lot of early morning generation to this property. This sort of system isn't going to be suitable for everybody, But if you're looking at your roof thinking, I don't really want them on the roof, my roof isn't suitable, it's too old, for example, then a wall-mounted solution might be for you. And that's something that we can help with. So what do you think? Wall-mounted panels, the future? Let me know.